2 years ago, we lost a friend, mentor, warrior, and icon of ABC News. Cokie Roberts was such a trailblazer in broadcasting, a fixture on television for nearly half a century, and on election nights like this one. We miss her so much, but are still no doubt guided by her presence. Joining us now is Mr. Steve Roberts, the author of Cokie, A Life Well Lived, a wonderful tribute to his wife of 53 years and our dear friend and colleague who we lost 2 years ago to breast cancer. Mr. Roberts, we thank you so much for joining us. Such a sweet tribute. You know, some men write their wives love letters. You chose to write an entire book dedicated to and about your wife. What made you decide to write a book?
Well, you know, after Cokie died, I did a eulogy at the cathedral just a block or two from where we're sitting right now here at the ABC Washington Bureau. And I just told stories about her. And some of them made people laugh. I mean, there was a lot of laughter in the cathedral that morning, a lot of tears, too. And so many people said, you know, I want to hear more stories about Cokie. And that was really the inspiration, but it was also my way of grieving. It was my way of mourning her. I decided that the best way to remember her was to celebrate her contributions and to tell her story so that other people could hear it.
Yeah, I can imagine that that was rather therapeutic for you to do so. Politics was certainly in Cokie's blood. She was the daughter of 2 U.S. representatives who served the people of New Orleans for a combined 46 years. She knew the ins and outs of the Capitol and the players who reside there in a profound way. Talk to us about how she approached election nights.
Well, it's a good question. She loved election night because she loved politics. You know, as you mentioned, her parents served in Congress for 46 years. Needless to say, we didn't believe in term limits in our family. And she loved election nights because it was the apex of a much larger idea, that politics was a noble profession. You know, in a lot of places, a lot of reporters today think politics is a dirty word. Not to Cokie. I mean, Cokie's 7th birthday party was at the U.S. Capitol. When she was 12, she was giving tours of the Capitol for her father's constituents. She loved politics, and she respected politics, and she respected politicians, and she respected the institutions that they served. So election night was almost like going to church for her. She also went to church a lot on Sunday mornings. She was a devout Catholic, but her devotion to Congress had that same sense of commitment to a set of ideals that she really treasured. And
you talk about her going to church regularly and her religious ritual as well. But you've said that, more importantly, perhaps, that she lived the gospel every day. What do you mean by that?
Well, you know, a lot of people know the public Cokie. A lot of people watched her on TV for many years, particularly young women who watched her and said, I can be that strong. I can be that smart. I don't have to hide who I am. I don't have to pretend that the men around me are smarter than I am. I can be my own woman. And that was an enormously powerful impact that she had. You know, Lindsay, not everybody can be a TV star. Not everybody can be a radio star. Everybody can be a good person. Everybody can learn something from Cokie and what she did every single day outside the glare of these TV cameras.
Yeah, everybody can be a good person. So such a profound statement and so poignant. She, of course, was a pioneer when it came to women working in journalism, as you just described. Talk to us about her journey and how tough it was for her to get the respect that she deserved in a male-dominated field.
It was really tough. I mean, we got married in 1966, and it was a measure of the times that we didn't even have a conversation about whose job was more important. Now, it happens at the time she'd already started hosting her own TV show on the local, pardon the expression, NBC station here in Washington. And yet I was on the city staff of the New York Times, and we moved to New York. And here's a woman, Lindsay, who wrote 5 best-selling books, right? And she went all over New York City looking for a job, and places like Newsweek magazine said to her, we do not hire women to be writers. Flat out. Now, 5 bestsellers later, I guess she proved them wrong, right? She was so grounded that in this world of network television, so competitive and so difficult, she knew her center. She knew her center of gravity. She knew what was important to her. It always kept her steady.
And you're right about her clouds of authenticity and air of authority that she naturally projected. Would you say that those two qualities were chief among the qualities that made her so successful?
Yes. The fact that, as I said, if her 7th birthday was at the U.S. Capitol, she knew what she was talking about when she talks about Congress on election nights or anywhere else. But there was more than that. You got to remember, when she started, she was still one of the first women in a major role on television. And what set her apart, sure, there were a lot of guys who thought she was sexy and smart, but it was the women, Lindsay, who became her particular fans. And so many of them said, I'm listening to Cokie now, I'm watching Cokie on ABC, because Cokie says what I'm thinking. Cokie asks the questions I want asked. Cokie has lived the life I've lived. She approaches these events and these issues from the perspective that we share. And that was really very important to her success.
And lastly, Cokie lived for 14 years in remission from breast cancer. Talk to us about those years and how she sees those moments.
Well, she knew a great deal about breast cancer. She had been a very outspoken advocate for more funding, more focus on women's health issues long before she was diagnosed herself. She knew that it was serious. And she, part of what she decided to do was say, look, if I have a limited time, I'm going to use it as well as I can. And in those years, she wrote several of her historic best-selling books, rescuing and reviving the stories of women in American political history, which was an extremely important contribution. But she wanted to be an advocate for issues she cared about, particularly women and children. And she went all over the world working for a wonderful organization called Save the Children. She became an expert on the issues facing women and girls around the world. She was particularly devoted to the idea of keeping young girls in school in underdeveloped countries.
Mr. Steve Roberts, we thank you so much for joining us. So many of your fond memories are our collective memories, and we appreciate that. You can find the new book, Cokie, A Life Well Lived, wherever books are sold.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.